Hello, welcome to TEDCast, and I'm joined today by Ian Mills, who's the coaching lead at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals. So welcome, Ian, to your first TEDCast. I know you've done a few things with us on TED and supported a lot of our events, which we're really grateful of, both in-house at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals and with some of our external collaborative as well. So to give us an introduction, can you just tell us a bit about your role and what you do with coaches at Lancashire Teaching?
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee, and thanks for having me on this video. I'm a leadership and organisational development advisor, which is a role that has multiple different functions. One of them involved teaching the coaching courses at ILM3 and ILM5 level. We wanted to bring a coaching hub approach into the trusts, well, a place where staff could hook up with trained coaches. So what I've done over the last couple of years is built the coaching numbers up of those of trained and accredited coaches who could go on the hub. And as a result, now we've got a place where you can stop off on our e-learning dashboard, match up with a coach, see someone who fits, who thinks can help you with your areas, and then hook up, and that coach can deliver the sessions for you as we go forward. As a result, I'm a supervisor for all those coaching in the system, and I also run the CPD.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I think building that sort of coaching culture, trying to encourage that coaching culture across the organisation absolutely fits in with what we're trying to do with TED, because it helps people work with their teams, but it can also help those team leaders, as you say, through that coaching support that you give, and your community of coaches that you're building can give as well, I think. So from your perspective, how do you think coaching can help leaders build relationships with their team?
So fantastic question, Lee. And interestingly, and for the people who are watching this, we've deliberately built the coaching hub in line with TED because we see it as going, as you say, it's almost in hand in glove. The coaching and the TED approach are absolutely integral to supporting leaders at various different levels and at various different layers. Through the extensive number of coaching sessions that we've come across, we find there's some particular leadership pitfalls that are quite common across lots of different bandings and levels within the NHS. Coaching in particular brings a different skill set and a different way of working that allows leaders to empower people to be able to think of the solutions for themselves and then be able to develop a way that best suits them to getting to those solutions. So some of the pitfalls it stops are leaders speaking first, sometimes using a little bit of silence and developing a little bit of thinking and reflective space or reflective pauses are really good. It actually stops leaders avoiding difficult feedback, because a coaching skill set allows you to look at things from different perspectives, different points of view, and will enable you to understand how to approach a particular topic. Often feedback isn't difficult, it's the consequences of having given that feedback. And through you coaching you as a leader, as an individual, we can help you best understand how you need to manage you through that process. Coaching helps you stop trying to solve every problem for everybody. Okay, you don't want to get overwhelmed by everything, and it's a natural assumption that people don't know how to solve their own problems. They do, they just need to be asked the right questions in order to get there. And often giving people advice can be the wrong thing to do, because that's how you would have done it in your circumstances and not how they need to approach it in their circumstances. We often find that leaders want to be liked. Okay, they want to be everybody's friend. Taking a coaching approach allows you to stand some real solid middle ground and not step one side or another and be really impartial in your approach. It makes sure that you focus on the people rather than the tasks. Okay, everyone starts at the task at a different level, a different point of learning, of understanding, and therefore the challenge is different for everyone at different times. And it's important to recognize that we don't all come from the same starting place. I also find with leaders as well, they have this, we always want to be available. My door is always open. And I do have a thing about sometimes you do need to shut your door Okay, and you do need to do that in the right way whilst you're being contactable, but also by adopting a coaching approach allows people to go and think for themselves before they come to you, which means that you won't need to be as available. You won't need to take on their problems, their risk. They'll know what they need to have done for themselves because they're empowered and trusted to do that in order to be able to, before they come to you to ask a question. And I suppose finally, it's a skill set that we want people to continue to develop with. Okay, what kind of a leader are you, and how do you know? How, I'm a leader who empowers people. I coach people to be the best. It's a skill set that outside of short hits within qualifications, people don't tend to invest that much in. So actually, if you can continue to develop as a leader by being coached yourself, understanding the benefits of being coached as an individual, how that's helped you, and then potentially get a qualification so you can adopt that approach within to the system. When we make the dotted line sort of connections through people being coached, increasing the retention, reducing the sickness, understanding their own personal development, linked to succession planning, you can dotted line that out quite clearly to better patient care. So as a leader, being coached yourself, understanding of developing a coaching approach as a leader, building a coaching culture in your team, linked to delegation, linked to feedback, linked to sort of time management, linked to succession planning, and then also linked to that not having that deep sense of overwhelm of having to do your work and everyone else's as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ian. And I think you paint a really good picture there of how coaching is never just about one instance. It's about more of an approach that can unlock a lot of other things. And I think the bit you said there that I see a lot with team leaders is that often before they sort of adopt this coaching mindset, from my perspective, when I work with teams who might be brand new to TED, there's a bit of trepidation about what feedback might mean and how it might create lots of extra work, which maybe they don't already have the capacity to deal with. And I think sometimes it can be quite liberating when team leaders start to recognize that they don't have to shoulder all that burden themselves. They can share that amongst the team, and they can, with open-ended style questioning through a coaching approach, they can help to, as you said, empower the team and bring everybody on board. So yeah, I definitely think that sort of sums up really well why coaching is such an important skill, but it really complements TED and fits in with the TED approach so well. And just thinking about it from team members' perspectives as well, you mentioned about that empowering. I think often to be asked those sorts of open-ended questions, to be asked to think around solutions, can be really helpful for teams as well, because that thought process, when it's sort of a shared thought process, it can help create relationships in the team as well as between the team and the team leader as well. And what you said on that open door policy as well, I see a lot of that, particularly in the NHS, where leaders absolutely want the best for their staff and their team, and they want the team to feel they can come to them. But sometimes it's important to recognise actually what's realistic and how can I make sure that I can get my work done as well as be there for my team, and how can we create a culture in our team where we do that in a way which is sustainable and manageable for us all.
I think it's a bit of a shift in some ways. For coaching is not an easy alternative to anything. It's just not for people. But if you think about it linked from an individual perspective and also from a team perspective, it helps you look after you, okay, which in turn helps you to look after your team. Okay, so coaching is all part of supporting you and your team's mental health and well-being. Okay, linked to engagement, which is a key tenet of TED, linked to retention, linked to succession plans. As I say, it allows you as an individual, as a team, to get clarity of what our issues are and what our concerns are, what's important to us, what motivates us as individuals, what motivates us as a team, linked to the vision of what we're trying to achieve. It allows you to get understanding of what's holding you back individually, but also as a team. And then it gives us that insight. It gives us that insight into the strengths, capabilities, and potential. And you put coaching with TED, you've got strengths, capabilities, and potential of individually and as a team, and it empowers them through encouragement and co-production, not telling them what to do, to come up with their own solutions for the future. So I think from both perspectives, you get to define the goals. I think you get to challenge, you get to challenge it to identify and look what the next steps are. A bit like with TED, it normalizes feedback. It builds a nice, psychologically safe feedback culture. But most importantly, and around that TED cycle and equally around the coaching cycle, people are accountable for the goals and their actions. How do we know when we've achieved it? How are we going to keep ourselves on track? Coaching and TED both align individually and as a team and combine together in order to be able to deliver the long-term goals and the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we've spoke there around how that coaching approach from team leaders can help the work with the team, but you mentioned about how it can be useful for team leaders to get coaching themselves as part of perhaps their own practice, their own development, but also that, I guess, some of that wellbeing support as well. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more around how a coach can help leaders unlock challenges they might face in their roles?
Yeah, I think it might be, if it's okay, to just frame coaching what is at this point. And I think some of this comes from conversation between you and I, Lee, when people will come to me and say, can you facilitate a TED? And one of my first answers is, are you okay? And often I get, actually, I'm not in the best space, or it's not the best time. And this is a point when I tend to introduce coaching for that manager, because yes, a TED is the right thing to do, but let's make sure you as a leader are in the right space to be able to deliver the TED. So for people watching coaching is that safe, confidential space where you listen to. Okay, I always talk about it as being your safe place to scream. Okay, somewhere where you can come and let off whatever you need to let off without any jeopardy, because I'm not your boss, I'm not your significant other, I'm not your friends. I don't judge you and I don't give advice. And it's a place where I'll tap into your potential. Okay, think about it from a mentoring perspective. That's really more directive. Okay, coaching really is really quite a short-term relationship where I'll never tell you what to do. Okay, but I might suggest some coaching tools. I am independent as a coach. I'm non-judgmental, as I say, I'm supportive, and it's more of a short-term relationship to help you unlock and uncover opportunities for you. There's options when people are stuck and they need to get unstuck. Okay, I describe it sometimes as people who were wandering down a path and they knew where they were going, and then at some point they haven't realised they've wandered off their path, and for a long period of time they now don't know where they are. And coaching allows us to hang on, put a pause, and get us back to where we started to make some decisions about ourselves. I think it's a big thing around unlocking potential.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that to talent, you think that to succession plan, you think that to unlocking people's potential, getting them unstuck so they can uncover new opportunities for them. For me, I've had a lot of experience in it. I tend to find that some real common topics that come up that discombobulate people is if they're new to role or new to a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, unfortunately, we suddenly don't know, between a Sunday and a Monday, we suddenly don't have all the skills to walk into a new role. It's an iterative process to learn. Often people can have areas where they feel as though they've got to be a perfectionist. They sometimes struggle with around prioritization and they can procrastinate stuff. If people feel out of control, is a really interesting time for people to become coaching, or if you feel uncomfortable. I get quite a lot of people who are people pleasers and don't like saying no. So again, link back to those leadership sort of pitfalls. And I think also the one thing that we can't get away from, and it's always going to happen, is often people can feel that little bit uncomfortable around change, and change in the NHS currently. And a lot of the issues can lead to doubt. Okay, what am I doing? Where am I? We can lead to burnout. Or people who are stagnating, people who are languishing, and we've got to pull them back into that flourishing state. So from a perspective of dealing with it from a TED perspective, we've got what coaching is, but actually, are you as a team leader in the right place? Can we build some you coach you skills in you prior to doing the TED that will benefit you during and afterwards? How do some of the joint tools that we have brought in together with TED and the Coaching Hub help during the TED? How do they help reflections post TED? How do we then take them into one-to-ones with people, linked to appraisals, linked to objective setting, all linked to that TED ethos of being recognized as a team? We all might have different job responsibilities, but we all know what we're trying to contribute, but we're all fit and healthy and in the right mental state at the best we can be at the time to be able to deliver those objectives linked to patient care.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think, again, it paints that really, really clear picture of how it's all part of that process, and a team leader getting coaching themselves. I like that phrase around it being a safe place to scream, around that just thought that it's a place where a team leader can be a bit vulnerable. They can sort of open up around areas they might be less confident with. And I definitely think in some of my coaching, when I'll coach team leaders who are going through TED for the first time, I think coaching can definitely help some of that uncertainty. And sometimes it's about getting that reassurance that you're doing the right things, you're making the right steps. And I think exploring things through a coaching process can help with that. And I know you've got some coaching toolkits around getting unstuck and identifying the sort of where you want to be, and looking at where you are now and where you want to travel to. And I think those fit in really well with what TED is as well, because that's essentially what you're doing with teams with the TED. Your TED survey. I'm always saying to team leaders and teams, when you get your first TED survey, it's only a snapshot of where you're at. But the real power in something like TED is what you do with it, how you understand it, and how you use that as a platform to build on and to sort of set off in the right direction. And I think what you've said there about coaching helps to give team leaders that confidence to then use those same skills that they might have experienced themselves in a coaching relationships when they come to work with the team.
And all we want to do is scaffold on the leadership skills they've already got. There's some fabulous people in these organizations with lots of great skills. Okay, and in some ways we're going to scaffold on those skills, but also raise their self-awareness around maybe their own triggers, their own fears, their own insecurities, and allow them to build in some, like you say, build in some ways of coping, ways of managing, ways of understanding, ways of dealing that allows them to elevate from where they are into that next level where they want to be. In turn, that will unlock the people beneath them, and it'll unlock the team as well as the individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my next question was, we've touched on this a little bit, but how can a coaching approach help to build a positive team culture, do you think, if team leaders are using these sorts of skills over and over again as part of that continuous improvement approach, I guess? How do you think that helps build a positive culture in teams?
I think what attracted me to TED when I first saw it was the last two questions and the great coaching questions. What do we do well and how could we get better?
Mm-hmm.
So, from a coaching perspective, from leaders to teams, using big, wide, massive questions that allow for thought, and using that reflective pausing space where we can to help us work out, actually, this is where we are now. As a team, where would you like to go? What does good look like for us? I think more and more within the health service, yes, we've got to manage today, but we've also got to manage what 2 years looks like, what 3 years looks like. So with one eye on the future, where do we want to be? And then what's stopping us as individuals? Okay, what's our own personal gaps? And then as a team, what the gaps we've got to get over in order to be able to get to where we all want to go. So I think it builds a collective ethos. I think it builds individual, the term resilience is wrong, but individual awareness, from a sort of a self-awareness, emotional intelligence point of view. That does build resilience in the long term because you understand yourself better. But I also think it brings a better collective together because you're used to giving compassionate feedback. You're used to having conversations. You're used to being open and honest. You're used to people bringing suggestions and not being shot down. So you're building a psychologically safe culture, which is easier said than done, to be perfectly honest, because it's being led and role modeled by the people who lead the team. Okay, and basically, we're all trying to accepting that we're all part of the solution here, but we do need to know where we want to get to, which is that visioning a little bit with TED. And you talked before about it being your starting point. Right, folks, this is where we are. Okay, what did you do well? What could we do better? Right, what can we do better is where we want to be collectively. Okay, now what's stopping us, and how are we going to motivate ourselves through? And if I look at some of the work around developing coaching cultures within teams through coaching leaders, clearly links to succession planning, clear links to development, talent management, addressing single points of failure can clearly be evidenced into improved retention. So I think there's not a lot that it doesn't benefit from, Lay, from an individual perspective, but when you bring it up into the collective with a TED, it sort of, my phrase would be, it steroid injects the impacts and allows it to sort of really shine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something I often reflect on with TED is really that it's a mechanism to help sort of encourage. It sort of nudges teams towards that sort of coaching culture, and really in a nutshell, the way I often describe TED is it's a way of getting your team talking about the things that matter to you the most. And sometimes they're the things that go unsaid or that are just assumed. But the process of bringing everyone together to talk about what our survey might be telling us are our key priorities, make sure that we're talking about the things that are absolutely relevant to us at this point. But I also think the continuous improvement process through TED, the idea that it's not a one-off intervention, you do it again and again and again, means that wherever you are in your TED cycle, as a team leader and from team members' perspectives, you've always got that confidence that at some point not too far away, we'll have that opportunity to reset and reflect where we're at. If things aren't going the way we'd like them to go, that's okay, because we've got in there a mechanism for understanding this through that sort of coaching culture that we might have in our team, and we're able to flex. And you mentioned that word resilience. I find that teams feel more resilient when they've got that opportunity to first off reflect on previous challenges they might have been through, because they can draw strength from that. But also TED's a great opportunity to recognize what are our strengths as well, and as much as in those sorts of TED feedback sessions we might be identifying gaps or places we want to improve, I think it's also really important for teams to reflect on what are our key strengths that we can build on. How can we leverage these strengths to make sure that we navigate what might be a period of uncertainty or a period of change, as we know so many NHS teams are going through at the moment. So yeah, absolutely agree with what you said there. And I think that coaching approach absolutely helps it to work, and it helps to build up that psychological safety in teams, where it's okay to question the way you're doing things in a constructive way, and to explore things together, get different voices from different parts of the team to understand what's best for us right now, and what are the next steps that we take that absolutely point us in that direction, which we've agreed together, and we're confident on. Because I think a lot of times it's really important, especially for NHS teams, perhaps more than any other industry, that teams take that time to recognise, look, we're all in this for the same reasons. We want the same outputs. So we want the same positive patient outcomes, the positive sort of impact on our service users. So if we take that time to regularly revisit that sort of North Star that we have, then that helps us decide, right, what are our next steps on that journey to that. And coaching definitely helps that, I think.
Absolutely agree.
So yeah, my next question was coming back more to a team leader's role in that. So I guess what we're trying to encourage here is team leaders to use these types of coaching skills with the TED. But my question was, how can a team leader use coaching skills to navigate feedback? I think we've mentioned already that sometimes it might be a bit tricky. Sometimes the feedback you get through TED, or feedback that you get in your team. Sometimes I always think team leaders are really brave when they do a TED, particularly for the first time, because you are sort of stepping into the unknown. So how do you think coaching skills can help navigate that type of feedback, do you think?
It's interesting that you raised that. So I think every team leader, depends upon their experience of TED, or just their experience or the situation will find themselves in day to day, will approach a TED in a very different mindset and from a very different perspective, which leads that it's a very individual approach to it. So no matter if you've done 3 TEDs, your 4th TED, you might not be in the same place as you were for your previous one. So I think from a team leader's perspective, it's interesting that we push the actual coaching out there as an option for you to support you. So as I said before, so you're there in the right mental and physical state in order to be able to support your team, which support the patients. So coaching helps them identify their own triggers, etc. And I think if you're concerned about feedback through a TED, then you can explore within a one-to-one coaching session what those concerns might be, and you might be able to work out what strategies you can employ with yourself in order to be able to do it. You talked about it before. TED's a snapshot in time, and we can't change the past. It's happened. It is what it is. But we can move people into a reflective space through coaching skills, and even through basic reflection skills of, well, what's just happened. Well, we've just read a TED report, and this is what came out of it. So what does that mean? Okay, and actions there. What am I going to do now? So from a team leader's perspective, even if you use a very simple what, so what, now what reflection model, it allows you to be able to rationalize what the approach is. I think also as well, if you're using a coaching approach with it, what you'll do is keep your TED in line of sight. Okay, TED action staying in line of sight in between the sort of the first TED and wherever your next one will be, allows you not to lose sight of what you are trying to achieve from a people perspective. Okay, we've got lots of professional metrics that we have to hit, but actually it's the people that deliver those metrics. Okay, it also allows you to be able to understand what they need. And at the end of it, you can say, listen, this is what we said we'd deliver. We've kept it in line of sight, and this is what we have delivered over the last 12 months. It allows you to keep the promises. It allows you to keep TED true and real to what it was supposed to be, not we're just going to do a TED. And we've done it, it's a tick box. So I think if you keep it from that, where are we now? Where do you want to be? Vision in perspective, which is that you can do individually as a team, as a coaching approach. And then how are we, through reflection, going to keep ourselves on track and keep what we said in line of sight? Every little bit of that coaching approach then moves through. And I think when you socialize some of the me on a page work, that from a coaching tool within TED allows leaders to be able to take that from a team level into an individual level, and it asks some really good, insightful questions. As does the getting unstuck questions, unstuck tools allows them to be far more engaging with their teams and asking rather than telling.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I really like that idea of using your TED as a fixed point, but having it visible, having it there as something you can keep coming back to, your last TED report, to, I guess, prompt those coaching questions. And I know I was speaking to a team leader earlier this week, actually, who was saying that they'd added TED as an agenda point in their weekly team meeting, and that just prompts them very regularly to look back at those results, even if they might have been 6 months ago, but then ask those sorts of coaching questions. What are we doing now around this aspect of team culture, or how is our work on team communication doing now, because this is what was in our TED. So it's just that reminder of, this is why we're doing these things, because this is what our team told us when we did TED. And coaching can be the sort of process to keep that momentum going over time, I think. And then definitely coming back to what you were saying around that support that team leaders get, I think there's different touch points throughout the TED journey where coaching can help. I think sometimes it can be before they get into TED. I think I've definitely coached team leaders who might be unsure if it's the right time to do TED, or, like you say, might have those bits of fears about what that feedback might look like. But sometimes it can come following their TED feedback, maybe before they deliver the feedback to their team, they've got the results back. And I think coaching can help a team leader work through, okay, how do I approach this feedback with my team? What are the right ways to do this? And I think something I often say to team leaders is the sorts of coaching questions I might be asking you as a coach. Those are often the very same questions you'll go on to ask your team. It is those sort of open-ended questions, getting the team to put their perspective in. And I think where TED's really great is it encourages everybody to acknowledge those different perspectives that there are in the team, and then they can more easily come to a decision on what what feels right to go forward now, based on what we know now and what we know about each other, and where we are, that Ted has told us what feels right is our next steps, and what do we need to be mindful of. So yeah, great examples. And you've mentioned quite a few coaching toolkits there, but my final question was around what toolkits are there, and I know we've incorporated some of those into TED, so I don't know if you just want to summarize some of your go-to toolkits that you use quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within coaching, there's any number of coaching tools that we can use and utilize. And some of them we moved into TED, So from an individual perspective, I like sort of a well-being side will be something nurturing or neglecting, and it's a simple a question set for people of which of these things that you love doing outside of work are you nurturing or neglecting? And it's a real reflective piece for people to try and understand and reconnect with the lives outside of work and getting some balance between who they are as a professional and who they are as a person. Within the TED where we've done quite a bit on getting unstuck, getting individuals unstuck. So that's a question set that we can use. We've done the bridging. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's my gap? And then build a bridge between the three. And we've sort of we've socialized that in a couple of sessions, and every one of the managers that's literally written 2 lines down a page, and right, this is my problem, this is what I would like to see, this is what's stopping me, and then I've said draw a bridge over and just tell me the 3 things you need to start to do. They've all looked at us, and if you remember, going, that wasn't that difficult, was it? And it's in relation to most things coaching, it's quite simple, it's quite easy. We did the me on a page because we wanted to be able to take coaching from the TED into one-to-ones. And linking back to something that you said before, if that's okay, some of the coaching approaches for people is they don't have to do all the work themselves. They come to realize that actually, if they've got an issue with time management, if they delegate effectively, that means they're developing people. That means you're getting more talent within your organization. So some of the work within that on this is around actually who should run the TED. And at the end of it, if I know from the me on a page stuff what motivates you, what interests you, where you want to be in 3 to 5 years time, great coaching question. We might delegate some of the actions from the TED to you because they're appropriate that you should run them. And that gives you evidence, and that gives you sort of more experience and exposure. So I think across the board, the more this year and next year we develop the joint tools to fit with teams, but also with individual leaders, I think that'll just get better and better. But I think we've got about 30 or 40 tools that we could use at this moment in time, Lee. It's just a question of making sure that we have the right tools for the individuals and how then we can transfer them into teams or separate issues for teams and keep them as simple as possible, as real as possible, so that people can see what's in it for them when they do it.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, I love that idea of trying to simplify things. I think often, I think it can happen to all of us when you're trying to think through a problem on your own, you can overcomplicate things, and so many things are sort of bouncing around in your head. So to be able to sort of externalize some of that and look at it on a page, as you say, that put things on a page, just 3 simple columns, it can help you sort of visualize actually what is this problem. Then you can look at it more objectively and look at it more logically than it is when you're just getting different thoughts coming into your head. And I think again that sort of illustrates where coaching helps so much, because it's that opportunity to externalize those things that are bouncing around in your head, so that you can then sort of take a step back and look at them a bit more holistically sometimes. But yeah, what I'll do is I'll put some of those toolkits up on the screen as we've been talking through those, because there's lots of really great examples in TED, and I think it illustrates how a lot of coaching tools can be good in one-to-one coaching sessions, but they can also be good at used with the team as well. And there's a lot of flexibility in some of those tools. And I think something I'd encourage team leaders to think about when they maybe download a TED toolkit is to think around how do you want to flex this to meet the needs of your particular setting for your team? You don't have to do them all exactly the way, as much as we've got guides to step by step take you through it. Think about making it your own, and work with your team to do it in the way which feels right for you and your current circumstances. And again, in that spirit of continuous improvement, try things out. Some coaching approaches will work for one team that might not for another team. So try something different, try different things, and keep innovating with your approach, because that can help keep you energized, think about things a bit differently, and it can really help to sort of enhance your work over time. Fab. So thank you very much, Ian. I think you've covered an awful lot there, and as I've said a few times, painted a really good picture of the benefits of coaching, how it can benefit on different levels, but also how it ties into that wider picture of what we do, both from an organizational development perspective, but definitely for teams and in their TED work as well, and that broader work that leaders might have across our organizations as well. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'm sure we'll get you on to future sessions that we're running around TED, and it's always great to get your insights on coaching or otherwise as well. So thank you so much, Ian.
Thanks, Lee. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you.